Hey babes, and welcome to another round of The Rebels, read to you by me. All unedited, all in one go, because I'm reading it primarily for a friend of mine who can't read herself, so I read it for her. Thank you for joining me. And let's get into chapter 16. If you're brand new here, you might want to start with the prologue. But hey, you're also welcome to jump in right from here. Son started shuffling everyone back into the vehicles, and I clambered back into the bed of my pickup truck. Alex elected to join me, first collecting her own rifle from the stash in the cab. I snorted, watching Son's dogs follow her into the bus. Over the rumble of the truck's engine, the sound of the girls exclaiming and cooing over them came clearly, and I knew those dogs would be the most comfortable out of the lot of us. "You okay?" I asked Alex once we got going. "Not even a graze," she boasted. "Good." I kept my eyes on the road, staring into darkness with my rifle cradled in my arms. We rocked as Azealia swerved around a pothole. "That means you got two good arms, because you're on added duties until I say when. And..." I turned on her and she shrank back, startled by my sudden rage. "If you pull any of that shit again, running in without a damn clue, I will fucking shoot you myself. Got it?" I faced the road again, breathing deeply, clenching my jaw until my teeth hurt, and trying to get myself under control. Alex stared fixedly into the night. I hoped she was thinking, damn it. I had neither the time nor the energy to watch her constantly. A tiny sob escaped her. As if that was the feather, her shoulders began shaking as she cried silently. "Leo and that other girl, that was my fault, wasn't it?" I sighed and awkwardly reached out with my injured arm to hug her. No. If Steve had never shown up, they'd have been fine. All I do know for certain is that if we hadn't been along, none of them would have ever made it out. So let's look at the ones who now have a chance to go through some PTSD. We can't change the past. "I'm sorry," Alex mumbled through her tears. "I was an idiot." She took a deep, shuddering breath. I don't know." "I know," I whispered. "I know." "So," I said conversationally, about 10 minutes later. Alex startled beside me, surreptitiously wiping her eyes. "You think you can do anything about those lights following us?" She sighted down her scope, checking out the distance. "Moving targets from a moving platform at night? You're cracked, but what the hell?" Alex rapped on the window. Jolly, riding shotgun, rolled his window down and stuck his curly head out. "What? I was about to take a nap." "Tell Azealia to keep her steady. I'm going to try to slow down our friends back there." "Gotcha." "Hey," I interrupted. "Any chance we can go dark yet?" "Waiting for the moon," Jolly reported. "We've got snaking roads ahead." "Better get shooting then." Alex sighed. She moved to her knees, bracing herself and trying to keep the muzzle steady. "Shit!" she cussed as we turned a corner. "Can you?" She gestured in front of her. She wanted to use my body as a brace to keep the gun steady. I exhaled heavily. Yep. I didn't bother keeping the resignation out and settled myself in front of her. I gripped the tailgate to keep myself steady and braced. "Here!" Alex thrust something into my view. "Use this." It was a pair of earplugs. "Yippee," I grumbled, stuffing them into my ears. I might actually be able to hear once this was done. Maybe. It took an effort of will to keep my shoulders loose and prevent them from scrunching up and bringing the muzzle closer to my ear. I closed my eyes and took deep breaths through my nose, clenching my stomach and hands, trying to ready myself for the boom. I could imagine Alex's face, set in concentration, waiting for the right opportunity. The rifle exploded and I jerked involuntarily, my head ringing from the sound. I looked, but the lights were still following. "You missed," I said. I think I said. I could barely hear anything. Alex's face appeared as a pale blob in my view as she pulled me around and she yanked an earplug out. I heard human, ice, and person for sure, though I think there was more to the sentence than that. I gave her a thumbs up for lack of a better idea. It must have been the right thing because she turned me around again and put that damn rifle back on my shoulder. I kept my eyes open this time, watching the lights carefully. This shot didn't hurt so much. Perks of being half deaf before you start. "You still missed." I felt my mouth moving. I just couldn't tell if it came out at any volume. Alex merely patted my head and repositioned the rifle. This time, she fired twice in quick succession, adjusting her aim slightly in between. The lights of the tank vanished in a small shower of sparks. I grinned. That woman was a royal pain in my ass, but she could shoot. A Hummer now pulled in front to lead the way. Nice, narrow, windy roads. I twisted so she could hear me. "Betcha a can of peaches you can't do it again." She stuck a hand in front of my face, thumbs up. A silent, "I'll take your bet." Alex pressed firmly on my shoulder, telling me to stay still. This time she targeted the rear Hummer, taking the opportunity to liberally pepper the space between the lights as well. I snatched up my scope and whooped at the sight that met my eyes. The front grille had a pretty little hole punched in it, and I didn't have to imagine the steam whitening the air from the damaged radiator. "If you can take out the front one too, I'll even consider shortening your cooking and cleaning punishment." My lips moved. I felt the vibrations in my throat, but not a hint of sound made it through the dead silence weighing my ears. I pushed down a breath of fear. Either I was deaf or I wasn't. Worrying wouldn't change anything. Her teeth flashed whitely and she nodded vigorously. Looking past her, I could make out some faces visible through the back door of the bus, and judging by their wildly gesticulating arms and open mouths, they were either encouraging Alex or trashing Steve. Or both. "Stay still," Alex mouthed to me. "Don't move until I say." She rapped on the roof of the truck, and a moment later we came to a full halt. I braced myself, tensing. The muzzle appeared over my shoulder and Alex waited. The convoy passed a tiny break in the trees before disappearing again. Then another. Still, she waited. Finally, I spotted what she waited for. The lead truck rounded a sharp bend, leaving it unobstructed. Alex fired rapidly, the short time between shots telling me she must be holding the bullets in an easy-to-grab place, like her mouth. The truck slowed abruptly, unable to maintain its uphill momentum any longer, causing a traffic jam behind it. Alex pounded my back in jubilation, and I took that to mean I could move now. Rolling to my left to avoid the hot muzzle, I turned and gained my feet. The bus had stopped a few yards ahead, waiting for us. Girls crowded the windows and doors, waving, mouths open. Screaming, presumably. "Quiet!" I said, feeling a strain in my throat. "Lights off and quiet! Now's the time to lose them! We need to move out!" Alex stepped up next to me, and I could see her mouth moving, steam gusting from her mouth as she yelled. Guess I wasn't very loud then. She got people settled down, and within a minute we were driving away, using nothing more than moonlight and the contrast of road and bushes to guide us. I was huddling and half frozen in the truck bed in the early hours of the morning when the truck lurched suddenly. The clouds had come back, blocking the moon, but not before we'd managed to get ourselves thoroughly lost. I'd breathed a sigh of relief when Son announced she didn't know where we were anymore. Jolly, who'd been helping by being Son's night vision, directed her to a side track that ended in a small clearing. As the vehicles were shut down, we could hear a stream burbling nearby. Yeah, my hearing returned. And smell the pine trees that surrounded us, deep as we were in the Cascades. Alex had to help me out of the truck. The hours spent in the cold, hard bed stiffened everything, and I could barely move. I was dying for the chance to lie down on a surface that didn't move, preferably with a blanket, though that wasn't a requirement. What do we do if it starts raining? Alex asked, giving the sky worried looks. Doubt it'll be a problem, I mumbled. Too cold to rain. More likely we'll get snow. As if that's better! The woman looked at me alarmed. Not wet. Snow can act as an insulation too, keep us warmer. Worst comes to it, we'll load everyone into the bus. I could barely form sentences, and as soon as I got both feet on the ground, I forgot what we were talking about and stumped off to gather firewood. We couldn't have a big fire, but maybe enough to heat some water. I shrugged, trying to loosen muscles, and the bandage on my arm pulled against the scab that formed, and I winced. Straightening to take my load back to camp, I groaned. Will you quit creaking and groaning in the dark, oh fearless leader? Son said sharply, taking my burden from me. Piss off! Well, at least now I know you're not dying on me. I wish I was. Might not hurt so damn much. She pointed sternly back towards the cars. You can get your ass back there and sit down before you fall down, and I have to drag your sorry carcass back. Fine, I grumped, limping in the direction she pointed, still carrying my load. See if any of the others have got the energy left to lend a hand gathering more sticks. We need enough for... Yeah, I know the drill. She put a hand between my shoulder blades to keep me going. Back in the clearing, she directed a girl to drop my pack wherever, and for me to sit down, while she kept going to the bus. She returned shortly, carrying an exhausted cub and leading Moana. Here. She set Cub down in my lap and helped Moana curl up next to me. This is a job you can do sitting down. Keep him company. Gingerly, I settled Cub on my good leg. She buried her face against my shoulder, and a fatigued mewling sound issued unabated, one icy little hand clutching my collar. My right arm made it awkward, but I unzipped my jacket and did my best to tuck both kids inside. Eleanor saw me trying to help the kids and left starting the fire to Alex to collect a blanket, bringing it over. Here. She shook it out, spreading it over us. We took some blankets out of that place. Thanks. We readjusted Moana, tucking some of the blankets under her and me so we weren't in direct contact with the bare ground. The little girl burrowed underneath it, pressing her head against my side. There, in the safety of darkness, she finally let her tears flow. Her narrow shoulders shook as she sobbed, tears wetting my sweatshirt. Alex soon had a small fire going, using bits of dried moss, pine cones, and slivers of wood we'd picked up every time we went out, gathered against such a time as this. A small pot of water soon steamed nicely, and Sonia and Jolly were working with the able-bodied girls to string up the large pieces of heavy cloth the kids had found at the nursery. Seahorse had been carefully placed on blankets near the fire, the Latina tending her as the young woman was also unable to move easily. She had more bruises than the rest of the girls we'd rescued, poor kid. A lovely aroma drifted through the air as Alex skewered the rabbits the kids had caught and got them roasting over the flames next to the pot. Slowly, as jobs were finished, women trailed in, dressed as warmly as we were able to provide, and settled in. Sorry. Food was passed around, and people ate like they'd never seen food before. I sighed and settled against my pack, cold quickly seeping into my butt, 2 warm spots on my chest and side from where the girls now slept the deep, immovable sleep of the grief-stricken. So, Eleanor was the first to speak after many long minutes, talking as she carefully cleaned Seahorse's side. We need to call everyone something. All of my girls, she indicated the women we'd rescued, had names given to them by the soldiers, and I think I can speak for them when I say we'd rather not keep them. There were nods and murmurs of assent from around the fire. I was wondering, I stretched my neck carefully, how important is the name thing? Eleanor gave me a bleak look. There was a situation about a month ago where a young man was pressing his attentions on a girl. She refused him, and he went to the soldiers and told them that her father was trying to undermine their rule. It was a lie, but they took him in for questioning. Let's just say that torture makes people say whatever they can to stop the pain. He told them whatever they wanted to hear, His daughter and several girls from named families were sent to brothels. That's how I heard about it. She paused a moment, staring off into space before shaking out of it. The moral of the story is that everyone breaks under torture, and you will give them every name you know. But if you don't know any names... I pursed my lips, trying not to show how badly that scared me. So, it's important then, I said with false levity. Maybe. Eleanor leaned her forearms on her knees to keep her hands steady. After we've got names for everyone, then we can talk a bit more about who we all are, and you can tell us what's going on, how you managed to get all this equipment, and where on earth you found guns. Seahorse gasped as Eleanor got too rough in her agitation, and Eleanor halted immediately, pressing the back of her hand to her mouth in horror. It's all right, Seahorse reassured her quietly. Everything's just swollen. I'm fine. You didn't hurt me, okay? So, names? Jolly, as always, talking with his mouth full. Heh. Yeah. I tried wiggling a hand free, but couldn't, and settled for indicating my cousin with my chin. I got something to call you. Can't call me anything bad, Sonia said promptly. There's little ones around, so nah. She stuck her tongue out at me. Gonna call you Sirius, I told her. Sirius? Echoed several people, puzzled and incredulous. No, I explained. Sirius, as in the dog star. I spelled the name for them. Think Harry Potter. Son thought about it for a moment. I can live with that, she shrugged, passing on the canteen. I'm Seahorse, Seahorse informed the group. I like them, she added defensively. That one, I indicated Jolly. You're smart, wily, and a lil shit. That, in my book, makes you Anansi. He's an African trickster god. Or he is in a fictional novel. I'm a god, the boy said, delighted. You're a pain in the ass, I told him, and he just laughed. We should call her something to do with driving, Alex said of Azilia. She's good and damn scary at it. Dereva, Jolly said, rolling the R. Say what? Dereva, Jolly repeated. It literally means driver in Swahili. Mom taught us how to speak it, he explained, a slight quaver in his voice. How about crazy driver? Sirius, asked. The boy thought about it. Too many words. You'll have a hard enough time with this. Dereva. I repeated it to myself, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't say it like Anansi did. What about me? Alex asked, a hint of trepidation audible to those who knew her. Phoenix, I sighed, the firebird reborn from the ashes. Oh, Alex sat back, surprised. That's really cool, the blonde from earlier said, staring moodily into the flames, dinner forgotten. I want to be called Storm, she said abruptly. The fire displayed her fine, delicate features, slightly tilted eyes, and full lips. In short, I couldn't imagine anyone looking less like a storm. Storm? Asked Eleanor, looking up from the contusions she was examining on the Latina. Yes, she cried. They're free. They can't be caught, locked up, or caged. You can admire them, but you can't hurt them. Fuck, son. Damn it, Sirius, murmured to me. She's beautiful, I whispered back. I always figured we were lucky for being plain. Amen, she breathed, watching the girl. Eleanor looked down at her hands, bloodied and clenched into fists, a look of pain and understanding on her face. She nodded, soldiers slumping in defeat. You always did have to deal with that, she said quietly. How about you? She asked her other foster daughter. Amanacer, she said. It means dawn. I said it a few times. I guess I can get used to it. Is there a nickname we can give you? She gave it serious thought. Aman? or Amana?" "We can do that," Alex nodded. "I want to ask why," she added, smiling, "that if we did that, we'd never actually name anybody, would we?" "Also," Amana added, "I will no fight. I have had suficiente violencia para mí." She paused, looking at our confusion, and sighed. "I will no contribute to violencia. I will help how I can, but not fighting." Several of the girls looked outraged, protesting and calling her a coward. Storm surged to her friend's defense, denying them hotly. Sirius and Alex began struggling to their feet, but we'd been going full bore for nearly 24 hours on minimal sleep and food for days before that, and I was afraid they'd be too slow. This was the typical catfight that most people expected when they imagined a group of women trying to work together. I'd always thought we'd do better, but here we were, less than a day of freedom, and it looked like we'd be torn apart before long. I didn't know whether I should laugh or cry, so I found a third option. "Enough!" I bellowed, startling the children, who began a thin, wailing cry. Alex, fucking Phoenix, I corrected myself, came over and took Moana, cuddling and whispering to her. This left me with 2 hands to hold Cub. As soon as the girls realized no one was angry with them and that they were safe, they fell back into an exhausted sleep. I glared around the circle, making a point to look at each and every one of them, staring them into silence. "If she don't want to fight, she don't have to," I said firmly. "She's already proved she's a badass bandaging people up in the middle of a damn car chase. There's a ton of jobs to be done, and picking up a gun is only a tiny part of it. I'll not force anyone to fight." "They'd be unreliable anyway," I added privately. "But," a lovely brunette protested weakly. "Can it?" I snapped. "How would you feel if I forced you to do work you didn't want?" "Oh, wait, you already know." I could go on, but you'll figure it out in time. I readjusted the sleeping baby in my arms, hoping no one could hear my heart pounding. I hated speaking in front of people, and having to yell at a group of strangers felt weird. Amana nodded thanks with calm serenity, seemingly unperturbed by the vitriol aimed her way. Then again, from the looks of her, she'd been dealt harder blows than opinions. The others' names came together quickly after that, Eleanor providing suggestions where needed. Fox for the young redhead, River for a quiet woman a couple years older than me who had the look of an old soul, Kestrel, of a similar age to River, who had hair the same brown gold as her namesake, and expressed a desire to fly, Jewel. I rolled my eyes at the presumptuousness of that but whatever. The girl with black hair who'd tried arguing with me, and High Tide, a girl in her late teens with a smidge of native blood who'd grown up with her uncle's tribe near the coast. Choosing names was rather more emotional than I'd have thought it would be, and took longer than anybody cared for. By the time we were done, I slumped, limp as a wrung-out dish rag, and I could see the others weren't any better off. Except our Anansi. That boy could get hyper on air. Seahorse had long since passed out, and Eleanor and Amana had taken care of most of the injuries. Eleanor just started on my leg, though, so sleep for us would have to wait a bit longer. "Wait!" the newly named Dereva said abruptly to me. "You don't have a name yet." "Sure I do," I mumbled, breathing deeply against the pain of Eleanor's work. "I'm Tweedledee. Those were good sweatshirts, you know," I said to Amana as she began cutting away my clothes to get to my arm. "Now they are good rags," she said serenely. "Hold still." I couldn't stop myself from twitching as the two of them bathed my cuts, getting out the bits of debris that'd been rubbed in after hours of ignoring it. Before too long, I was biting my lip and scrunching my eyes shut, vaguely aware of the conversation around me. "Nuh-uh," Storm shook her head. "No way do we have someone named Tweedledee in the group." "Our leader, no less," Sirius said helpfully. "Who said I'm leading?" I grunted. I indicated Seahorse, who'd come out of her doze. "We got an honest-to-goodness soldier right there." "Seems to me like you already are," Seahorse smiled wanly. "I can't believe you dislike me so much so soon that you want to saddle me with this lot. Besides," she added, "you'd probably go nuts watching somebody else botch a job you've been doing well enough on." "Well enough?" I laughed shortly, tipping my head back. 2 people died today. The words hovered on the tip of my tongue. Looking at the building hope, I swallowed them back. I sighed, shoulders slumping, resignation and exhaustion bowing my head. Most of us made it out, and you've been free since the beginning, Eleanor said gently. If not you, then who? Who indeed, I sighed again. This can't be 100% a democracy, you know. We'll work that out as we go, Eleanor smiled, tying the bandage at last, and I relaxed at the lessening of pain. Now, we need to find you a name. Suggestions were thrown out wildly, mostly from my ever-loving cousin and Phoenix, ranging from Rock to Eagle to Chicken Wings. That one was all my cousin. All right. Eleanor patted the air with one hand, settling them down. About damn time. We all need our sleep, and we'll learn more about each other over time, but I really think everyone should have a name before we turn in for the night. Serious options only, ladies. Seahorse, who'd been silent during the earlier hilarity, looked thoughtful. I was thinking we could call her Captain. I told you we're not an army, I protested. No, she replied calmly, but we are planning on fighting, right? Which means military, or at least militia. Which means a command structure. That means you. And it might help confuse the enemy. I yawned, wanting it to just be over so I could go to sleep. Anything that confuses Steve is a bonus. Who's Steve? 3 voices asked at once. Sirius giggled sleepily. The North Koreans. We heard it and thought it was funny. Any objections to her name or her being the leader? Eleanor asked. There were none, probably because everyone just wanted to sleep. Sirius's pup Obelix would be the main watch this night, and thank God for the little guy's ears and nose. Before sleeping, I struggled upright, pulling off my boots and socks to check my feet. Ever since our escape and the mess my feet had become, we'd made it a thing to regularly check our feet. Being in Salem, we'd ignored that, but sweat and the cold had gotten me worried. Son, at some point, had the presence of mind to ransack her mom's medicine cabinet, which, fortunately for me, included antibiotics. I probably would have gotten an infection that first week if not for that one small act. It wasn't a performance I cared to repeat. After pulling on another pair of socks, I finally fell into oblivion. Well, thank you for joining me for Chapter 16. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, maybe consider giving this a like and a follow. You know, it helps introduce the series to more people, and that's really what I want to do. You can also subscribe to my newsletter if you want to keep getting news. This series is actually completed, but I will talk more about them in newsletters as well as my upcoming book. So I hope to see you in there. Have a good one.